Zora is happy to do the tedious stuff for Stamets. Michael has a broker friend on Parathia. And Glowworm wins a game of Leonian poker with radical-looking cards. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and I meant it when I said radical cards. I want to talk about those cards for just a second. Today, we're doing a review of Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 8, entitled All In. We also would like to give a very special thanks to our friend, Mr. Jim Martins. Thank you very much, and special thanks to you. How you doing, Cirroc? Let's talk about this episode.
I'm doing good. Doing good. How about you?
Good. It's a windy day in Southern California's beautiful San Fernando Valley, but we power through. It's 80 degrees and windy in February. Boy, do we have it tough nowadays. Okay, you know what? Actually, what's the most important thing? Number one, doesn't matter what any episode of any show does from here on out. The highlight of the year is Eisenberg class being mentioned in the first 20 seconds of the episode.
Yes, that was the highlight of this episode. Right away, they got to it.
That's cool. Not only to know that there was the USS Nog last season, and then you look it up and it says it's an Eisenberg class. So first of all, Nog is mentioned. It's an Eisenberg class, or Nog is shown Eisenberg class, which was already great and wonderful and a beautiful way to honor our good friend, Mr. Aron Eisenberg. But today they actually verbalized it. It was actually part of the script. And there are people in that writer's room that are looking over our friend, Mr. Aron Eisenberg. And hopefully he's looking over us and he would have gotten such a kick out of that, wouldn't he?
Yes, he would have. And for that reason alone, I'm going to say only good things about this episode, because they did knock it out of the park by giving a nice tribute to the late, great Aron Eisenberg. And it's always great to see that, that his impact and his memory is still being celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always a good tribute when you get to see something like that. I was very happy.
Yes, so much so. His impact is felt so much so that even in the writer's room, they're like, how can we incorporate him visually, in the lore and verbally? So that's really cool. And I'm sure, we're allowed to say that on Aron's behalf, thank you. That's really cool. And on behalf of Aron's fans and friends and all Star Trek fans, we also want to say thank you. That's really cool. It doesn't go unnoticed, especially the people that knew what that meant right away. I'm sure everybody was very happy and touched by that. Really cool. So, also, those poker cards, I wasn't kidding. I really thought those were cool. Like when they showed a close up of those poker cards, I was like, wow, those are really cool little designs. Like there was like the shape that was kind of like this on them that showed. And it made me, for the first time, recognize the props department. Like we always recognize the visual effects, the music and scoring is great. The makeup is great. Obviously we get all that, but this was the first time I was like, wow, very creative props department. I don't know why it was a poker card that got me to think that, but it really was.
I thought the same thing too. I thought that was original because I don't know if I've ever seen a poker card that didn't have the traditional diamond, heart, club, spade on it, right? Or a deck of any playing cards. So the fact that they altered that and made it some kind of unusual shape, and even the shape of the card itself was different. It wasn't like a rectangle like we're normally used to seeing. I thought that was cool. That was one of the things that I enjoyed the most, and made me think, well, these guys are this show. They're playing poker. They're doing mushrooms. I'm like, this is a real cool show right here. So yeah, I thought that to myself, but it was actually good because wasn't there? I was looking for Star Trek T-shirts online not too long ago, And one of the ones that popped out and caught my attention was a Next Generation T-shirt with a bunch of poker cards on it, and I think it was called Royale. Is it Royale or Casino Royale?
Royale was a movie, I think, back in the day.
Yeah. Well, it was a Star Trek shirt, and it had the Next Generation cast.
Was it a shot looking down on them, or what?
No, it was actually the cards themselves, the faces of the cards. So I think Worf was like a Jack of Spades, and each person was a different actual card itself.
Got it. That's cool. Okay.
I don't know what episode that was.
Well, see, what I was thinking was that it might be if it actually showed them playing card, it was just a scene in which they were playing poker, because they did that a lot. And if Picard was there, then it would have only been a reference to the very final scene of the last episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. But it wasn't those. So it was just like a card where they were the characters on the cards. I get it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really cool shirt. I like it. I'm going to see if I can find it here and pull it up if I can.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a lot of instances where they played poker on Next Generation?
Yeah, it was kind of their thing. It was really beautiful because it was kind of where, some, like, there was Quark's bar for Deep Space Nine. Well, for Next Generation, they had 10 forward, but the senior staff also would play poker nights sometimes. And Riker was like the shark, the poker shark. Data was the dealer because, he's a robot, an android. And it was just fun because it was interesting character developments and character reveals in those card games. There was a really good one with Cause and Effect, one of my favorite episodes ever, that just had the same thing over and over again and changed a lot. I don't want to get too much into that because it's really good. And in case you ever see it, I don't want to spoil it. But anyway, so poker's definitely a thing for Next Generation. Yeah.
For Next Generation. Yeah. That's the shirt that I saw. And it was a really cool shirt. Now that I'm looking for it, I think I'm going to go buy it because it is something kind of rare. But yeah, I thought this show, Discovery, has by far the best set design that I've ever seen on a Star Trek show. It's not even close, I don't think. When you look at the visuals and the background and the sets, it's not even close. The stuff looks as good as it gets as far as set design, as far as modern, the futuristic feel to it. I mean, it feels like I'm on a spaceship.
I was even noticing that and I put in my notes, I even noticed that in Michael Burnham's quarters, which were pretty plain, pretty simple, just regular quarters. But I noticed in the background, like 3 or 4 little trinkets, like a vase here or something, and they just looked really elegant and really interesting and classy. And I was just like, it's interesting because usually you would notice, production design and set decoration, when there's a lot going on and you're like, wow, there's so much cool stuff. But sometimes in its simplicity and its classiness, like, it tells a story too. And that's where I noticed it in this episode. There's, a couple scenes in her quarters, and I was just like, wow, that's really cool. Like, sometimes it's just the little things that catch your attention, So I want to second that. I also want to mention that we heard a new alien race, the Stilf. They mentioned the Stilf. I don't think we've ever seen.
Is it Stilf or Stilf? A Stilf with a TH. I had it down as Stilf.
I believe it's PH. Stilf.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. I don't think we'd ever heard of them before, so we'll keep an eye out and keep our ears open for if they ever mention them again. Mm-hmm. Also, I want to mention another new alien. Maybe he was a Stilf for all we know. Now this guy has extra, what was his place called? I don't remember. But
the Karma barge.
Yeah, the Karma barge. The funny thing was the way Book mentioned it, that I had no idea what he was saying, because with the British accent, he was like, Haas is Kamabaj, or something like that. But then I looked at the subtitles, because I always keep the subtitles on to see the new alien races and stuff like that. And it said Karma Barge. And I'm like, if I hadn't had that, I would have just thought it was like, like a Kamabaj, like the Rock the Casbah or what, like just a thing to call it. But another thing that was interesting was Has called himself Has. Everyone else called him Haas. So I'm like, which one is it? I usually go by what the person calls themselves, but if they all agree that his name is Haas, maybe he's the one that's wrong. But he was great. The writing for him was awesome. The acting, this guy, I got to look him up, is clearly a seasoned character actor, because this guy gets it. He knows when to whisper. He knows when to smirk. He knows when to add something to a line. He knows when to just kind of casually use it as a throwaway line. Whoever this guy is, beautiful. And the writing for him was awesome.
Yeah, I thought his performance was fantastic. There were just subtleties there all up and down this episode. The interaction he had with Book and with Burnham, you could see the familiarity he had with them. A lot of inside kind of jokes in between them, or like, I'm not playing that. This is how it's going to go. He had a lot of, I would say, kind of a Quark type of master of ceremony type of
interesting,
ambiance to his being, his persona, like larger than life, and kind of like, I'm the master of this show. You're in my domain, kind of like, being at Quark's bar. This is my show. This is how it goes. I felt an element of that. And I love the negotiation scenes that he was having with everybody. Like, hey, it's up for grabs, really. You can't tell me I can't sell it. The hell I can. I'll sell it to whoever I want to sell it to. I thought he was great. I actually took time out to do a little artistic work on him.
This is what we got to see.
That's my rendition of the Haas band.
Wow. And you also got the guy with the Rams horn too.
Yeah, because of the Rams are playing in the Super Bowl. I figured we'd just hype up on the Rams.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really good. Actually, that looks a little bit like, it reminds me of the Krill on the Orville, actually. But I thought the makeup on Has was really good. I think the whole character, that's an A+ character. The acting, the makeup, the writing, the fact that he had all these funny sayings. Remember, he said the first funny saying, and you're like, what the heck is this guy talking about? But you get it. You're like, okay, he's just got weird sayings because he's a different. I think he said, but jab a Brussels fly. I can't even say it. Jab a Brussels fly. Where'd it go? Jab a Brussels fly, and I'll scoot some green bread. Right? It just took me 3 tries to say that. This guy said it as if he said it 1,000 times. Jab a Brussels fly, and I'll scoot some green bread or something like. And those are the kind of things that make me rewind and play back, where I'm like, this guy's saying something unnatural, but saying it naturally. And the writers just gave him, clearly a seasoned actor, something to play with. Actors would love nothing more than interesting and fun lines like that, where you can just really sink your teeth into and say, okay, I get it. He's this guy from a completely different culture. He uses these sayings. He has his fun. What a playground, for an actor to play in, I think.
Yeah, I think he's a great character. He's somebody that I wouldn't mind seeing a lot more of, because he just has so much personality, and he's so charming. And, we always hear when we interview guests who wear prosthetics how difficult it is to act in all that makeup. And he was able to just hit it all out of the park, even though he had this really big restrictive headpiece on. You barely see anything but just his eyes.
Yeah.
And even still, he played all the moments with his eyes very well, I thought. And he was the kind of guy where you're like, I know he's kind of into bad things, but I kind of like him. And it's like, I know he's deals in the black market, and he's all into underground, buying and selling and trading. But
yeah, but he's a cool guy. He's kind of chill.
He's a cool guy. He's not bothering anybody.
He kind of, like, you expected him to be a big bad mob boss type, but he was more just like, hey, whatever. We're just, just doing my hustle. You're doing yours. No big deal. We're all friends here until we're not.
And he actually reminded me of Hellboy.
Oh, interesting. Ron Perlman's Hellboy.
Ron,
who, by the way, whose sidekick was Abe Sapien, played by Mr. Doug Jones.
You see how that all ties in together?
Beautiful.
But yeah, there were Hellboyish moments, that kind of bravado, that kind of charm, a little bit of a Hellboy thing as your pinky goes up in the air in confirmation. The other thing I wanted to mention was that ship that I thought was really cool, that kind of serpenty dragon ship that was in the water.
Yeah.
I thought that was a cool. I don't know if we've ever seen something in the water before. We're usually in space. We're usually in the air, or on a ground base. But I've never seen us.
We've seen things that are supposed to be in the water in space, like a Gormagander, a space whale. But yeah, that was the first time that I can think of where we got to see that cool visual of some kind of like serpent going. It almost looked like at least the body of like a Chinese New Year kind of serpent. You know what I mean?
That's what I wrote.
And
it
looked
down,
really
Chinese
cool.
dragon. Yeah, it looked like a Chinese dragon. And what I thought was cool about it was as the mouth opened and they're flying into it, I'm like, okay, where's this going to go? And then the hologram dissipates and you see what it is for it, as the ship that it is. I thought that was another great special effects, visual effects moment for Star Trek.
I agree. It's very smart, very good concept, and really well executed. Like when I see stuff like that, there's like, even though it's only a few seconds, I have this whole thought process of it's coming up. The first thing I think, and I think a lot of people think, is, ooh, cool. I hope we see more of this thing. And then it comes up a second time and you're like, oh, good. Because what you don't like is these things where you're like, oh, there was like this little thing that just popped up for a second and they're saving money. So that's all you saw. You're like, we want to see more of whatever this thing is. And they show it a second time and then a third time. And then it comes up and it's also not just gratuitous, but it's a reveal into part of the storyline. So yeah, that's another A+ moment. Beautifully executed, beautifully conceptualized, I thought too. It looked awesome, and it's exactly what we want. We want to see cool, interesting new things,
Yeah, and once again, hats off to the set design guys, because they had to come up with the whole ship design for that particular place, for the this Karma barge. And I was with you when I first heard it. I put Karma Bosch. What is that? Because his accent kind of mucked it up for me, and it only until it came on later. I didn't see it with the subtitles, but somebody, I think Burnham, said it later on in the episode, and that's when I understood it to be the Karma barge.
It's Has Mazzaro's Karma barge, but it was so funny the way Book said it. He said, "Welcome to Has Mazzaro's Karma barge," or something like that. To where I was like, well, that was a mouthful, and I have no idea what we just said. But then I looked at the subtitles. I was like, oh, Karma barge. I get it. British accent. Okay. And I wonder if the British people are like, oh, a Karma barge. Of course, a Karma barge.
Oh,
obviously.
Has Mazzar. Yes. But no, I was lost, just like you. And I actually, speaking of names being pronounced differently, Awasakan had a different pronunciation this episode too. Awoshikun.
Yeah, she's pronouncing it, so presumably this is the correct way to say it. Awoshikun, right? It looks like Awasakan, but it's Awoshikun, right? Now, even, was it Tarka? Even Tarka said her name differently. He said, like, it was almost like he was just like, sometimes words just don't work with you. When And clearly he was having problems with it because he said Owoshikong, like he kind of made it like a guttural, and he did it twice. Both times he pronounced her name, and I was like, I feel you, man. Like sometimes there's just a block where you're like, I'm saying it this way. That's it. I'm just saying this word this way. Sorry.
And we get that a lot in Star Trek. We get that a lot because, you know, when you get the script, and I don't know if that's the same as true for today as it was back then, but we'd get the script and there, whatever words or names that were unusual or foreign to us were written in a pronunciation guide on the opening pages of the script. So you would be able to go through and I don't know if anybody looks at that, by the way.
They should.
They put it in the episode.
Somebody put in the time and effort.
Yeah.
For good reason.
Yeah. And literally everybody just kind of goes past that page and finds where their lines are. And thus we get to a place where everybody pronounces words differently because they didn't actually look at the pronunciation guide or sit down and say, hey guys, we're going to all pronounce it like this. So it's kind of, you know, every man for himself in that regard when you're filming.
Speaking of that, didn't he say something like a saying like every man for himself, but he said every man, woman. What was the line that he said? Oh, well, I can't remember it.
For the poker game, you mean? It's like right before the poker.
Some people that are watching right now know what I'm talking about. It was like I think it was to each his, her, or their own, something like that. I think that's what it was. It was a different play on an old saying just to be more inclusive there. And then you figure like, oh, well, in the future, you know, and then he's like all the things. He's just like, let's just, you know, all the stuff. To everything its own. Let's move. You get what I'm saying here. Also, that big dude's name was Otto Kerr.
Who's that? The big dude?
Steve Kerr's brother.
Otto
Kerr. He was the big dude that fought Owoshikun, and dropped her ass a couple times. But we knew they were playing the con. They're playing the con game. She's like, "Oh, you beat me. Well, we'll do it again. Oh, you beat me again. Okay, now bet all the money and I'll win."
45-1.
That's a hustle.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. They brought up this. I'm looking it up now. The Faraday cage.
Yeah,
like, it's like a Faraday cage. Yeah. So, and I remember studying about Faraday cages and seeing miniature versions of them all over the place. But so I just thought it was interesting. They brought up the Faraday cage. It's reminds me of Brookstone. Going to Brookstone, looking at that little thing that had the like. No, Brookstone. Brookstone was like a gadget store in the mall that would always
yes, yeah,
like massage chairs
as seen on TV.
Things. Yeah, that kind of stuff. And they would have this globe thing that when you touched it, electric, you know, like purple electricity would just come to wherever you touched it. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought of when they said the Faraday cage line.
You know, I want to point out, I mentioned earlier when Haas, the actor, by the way, I looked up on IMDb and it's not filled out yet, so I don't know who the actor is. I'm sure the actor's mentioned, you know, there's a line with his name somewhere in the credits of the episode. But there was a moment where, you know, they're saying something. I think Michael Burnham says, we'd like to examine the product first to make sure it's all good. And he goes, fair enough. Or whatever. He just two lines.
Yeah.
And he whispers it. And I was immediately like, I put in my notes, I said, this guy gets it. He knows when to whisper. Like, I keep catching myself being taught lessons by these great actors on Discovery where you're like, that was a choice, you know, like he just decided this is how I'm going to deliver it. And it just added so much. I mean, this guy is only going to be in probably one episode ever, yet somehow he's figured out a way to be memorable, which is not easy to do to have a memorable performance. Because I mean, like if you're just there for 1 week or 2 weeks, you could just be like, okay, well, by the time he's actually got the character down, a lot of people, they don't have the character down for an entire season. But these day players have to have the character down from day one, and it's so hard to do. It's a really a thankless job that these day players do this. It's amazing to me.
I thought he was. I have to second what you're saying. The guy was spectacular in this episode. For coming in a one-off. And it's the first time we've seen him. He left a huge impact, carried pretty much the bulk of the episode in the scenes that he was in, I thought. And like you said, those subtleties, those little moments, there was a moment. It was like what you sensed from him, at least what I did, is that he wasn't on anybody's side. Like he wasn't for anybody. He was just for himself.
That's like a Treebeard quote when the hobbits say, "Whose side are you on?" And he says, "Side? I'm not on anybody's side because nobody is on my side." But whatever. That's the Lord of the Rings thing.
Yeah. That's that was the energy that I got from him. It was like, when Book comes around, hey, my man Book. When Burnham came around, hey, Burnham, what's up?
And then he didn't even tell them right away that Book was there.
Yeah. Even like, though whatever. He knew that they were together, he knows that they're together, right? I mean, he has knowledge of that because I think there was some mention of that.
He did mention
when Book first came in. He mentioned like, "Hey, how's Burnham doing?" or something like that, something about his girl. I thought that was cool that he didn't mention that each other were there. And there was another moment too where Burnham didn't have enough latinum for the transaction she wanted, and she's like, "Well, I'll just make a phone call and call let me call Starfleet and get some more latinum, sent over." And the way he said, "No, we don't need. I don't need Starfleet coming over here."
Yeah, no, like, no.
Nah. The way he shut that down was just classic to me. I was like, "Oh, that's."
It brought up something interesting to me, and I feel like we've been squabbling about this since the dawn of time. Star Trek fans, that is. Starfleet doesn't deal with money. They don't. They've eliminated money. The Federation doesn't use money. So how do they keep having latinum? Where do they get it, right? They clearly have to get the latinum from something, right? In order to get it, they have to sell goods or they have to trade goods so that they have it so that when they're dealing with other races, they have this latinum to deal with those other races. Okay, so they are dealing with money. They don't deal with money amongst themselves, but they are selling and trading goods for money so that they can use it when dealing with other people that use money. Well, that's the same thing we do today. Amongst friends, sometimes you're families, you're giving stuff back and forth, you're not dealing with money. But in cases where these people, you go to the grocery store, they're like, "I don't know you. You have to give me money." We go, "Okay, well, I happen to have some money that I got from exchanging work." So I don't know. It's just always an interesting thing where it's like, we say that they don't deal with money in the future in the Federation, but they do. They have to. They have no choice because there are still outside forces out there. But I also wanted to point out boronite, when they found out that the big DMA thing that's 228 million kilometers in radius, that's 456 million kilometers in diameter, that's 332 miles. I'm just kidding. I don't know how many miles, but something like that. I'm not going that fast with the miles conversion, but somewhere around 250 million miles across. Anyway, they mentioned they're basically mining for boronite. Now, boronite has been mentioned one time before in Star Trek, and that was on Star Trek Voyager. I don't remember the episode. The Borg used boronite, I believe, to make this omega particle, which is like the purest whatever thing. I'm sure if I check the Don Crandall notes, he's going to give better notes than I have on this. But basically, when they mentioned boronite, Star Trek fans, the first thing they thought is this has been mentioned before in reference to the Borg. So this may be the Borg 800 years into the future mining for boronite, which could be a very dangerous thing.
Yeah, they're keeping this mystery on us, and yeah, it could be. And now that you mentioned that, they did say, well, if this is their mining device, then what are their weapons like? Which is, a scary kind of thought there. Yeah, I know nothing of boronite. I was looking it up to see. I found bornite, which is one of these minerals, an ore of copper.
That's like when you're watching a movie you don't like. It's a bore night. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know if it's the boronite. There's a company called the American Boronite Company, which is
that's cool.
Funny.
Okay, so looking at Don Crandall's notes for us very quickly before we go to the free for all, he says they mention Alasians, and that was a species from the classic original series episode, Ellen of Troyes. That is a very well-known episode. There's a lady dressed up in a very iconic outfit that a lot of people like to cosplay. Actually, let me show you right now. Here's the cosplay. So everybody, when you see this cosplay at conventions, you know that is Ellen of Troyes. But that's from that episode.
Elaan.
Yeah.
Elan.
Yeah. Elan of Muscus. And by the way, shout out to my good friend Stacy out in Toronto, who does an excellent cosplay of that. Also, he says, boronite has something to do with the dreaded Omega particles from Voyager. 7 reacted to them as if they were divine in their purity and power. The Omega Directive is the episode, he says. A line I missed, he says, act like an Armis. And Armis was the character in Skin of Evil that killed Tasha Yar. That's interesting. He says that's twice now the writers referenced him. The other is Lower Decks, right, when they called Armis. Also, did you notice the Changeling that was that kind of had the smoothed out face like Odo? So it might be a similar race, although it looked a little bit different. So who knows if it's just a similar race.
She's the black changeling. That's what I wrote down. I was like, this is black changeling.
Nice.
We represent. We're here.
He also says he says that there are other changeling races. One was Imon species from Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. Check that out. Actually, I'll just show you this one very quickly as well. There you go. That was in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. She was also a changeling, different race of changeling. And the last one is the Vendonians from the animated series The Survivor, also seen in Lower Decks. Anyway, he did say lastly, I missed you like a Cardassian misses cake. He says he doesn't get the reference, but he thinks that you and I might. I think there was nothing more to it. I don't know anything about Cardassian cake.
Yeah, I don't think they miss cake at all. So I think that's a
maybe Cake-O.
Yeah, I didn't get that at all myself. I was like, Kardashian cake, is missing something? But we had a tribble as well. There was a tribble in this episode.
Yeah,
right?
The changeling changed into a tribble to escape.
Yeah. And I was thinking to myself, of all things to change into, the most defenseless, harmless thing in the world would not be the thing that I would change into.
Nope. That guy Edward from the Short Treks episode would be like, yum, they're mostly meat, he says. Like giant meatballs. So we are going to go to our free-for-all in just a second here. But before we do, we'd like to give a very special thanks to Carmen, a.k.a. Skillet TJ, Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill, Victor, Arucan, Yvette Blackmon, Tom, Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy, Eve, England out in Wales. Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Tim Baum, Titus Mohler, Darlena Marie, John Mann. Who? John Mann. Rex
John
A.
Mann.
Wood, Dr. Mohamed Noor, of course, Joe Balsarati, Tierney C. Dieckmann, Michelle Melendez. Actually, it's pronounced kind of the French way. Michelle Melendez, Marcia Classic Schreier, Anna Post, who is joining us in a second, Jenna Appleton, Dr. Frank Sobozhensky, and especially Dr. Susan V. Gruner. We will see on the other side on the free-for-all. We'll be right back on the Seventh Rule. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
You may or may not know, you may or may not care, but my name is Ryan T. Husk. We are joined by Malissa Longo, Anna Post, and Homer Freezy out somewhere on the Bridge of the Discovery. Let's just get right back into it. Cirroc, you were saying you had a point you wanted to make.
Yes, in this episode, I felt like there was a moment between Culber and Stamets when they were having their moment where they were bringing up Book. I felt like Book being gone was causing some kind of thing, and I wondered if there was some feelings there for Book that they were trying to kind of touch upon or not. And if that was something in my head, or if you guys caught that as well.
I'm not really sure what you mean, to be honest.
I think
it seemed like
in a romantic sense.
I felt like that. Yeah, I felt like they were alluding to that in the conversation.
I thought maybe it was more the fact that he had counseled him, and it was like personal. That closeness of like the client-patient relationship, and he had counseled him and been going through problems himself, and I thought maybe it was more his own sense of having failed Book or the ship, and that he didn't realize in these intimate counseling sessions, and he had thought that he had broken through with Book and like helped him, that Book just like jumped ship, and he hadn't seen that coming, and I thought that it was more alluding to that. But
it was a very personal situation. It wasn't just like, oh, another guy goes off and does something, you know, like he was having these personal sessions with Booker that were, you know, counselor and patient, but also friend to friend, right?
Right. And part of that may have been like Culber feeling like he failed in his counseling, that let Booker just go off and do what he wanted to do because he wasn't as effective as he thought he was supposed to be.
What do you guys think of a counselor also being the chief medical officer? It sounds like that double duty is too much for one person.
I agree. And the strain is showing.
Yeah.
Your strain is showing.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys. Well, when I am upset or preoccupied or whatever Culber was, I don't clean. I do something else. That struck me as odd. And plus, just kind of like wiping the sides of the couch and then going somewhere else is like, that's not even effective. What is he doing?
Anyway, you tell him, Homer. That is not a
cleaning
good way to
technique
clean.
is bad.
I do know people who clean when they are frustrated. I am not one of those people, but I do know people who do.
They could give Culber lessons on how to do it effectively, I think.
Well, yes. I don't think he's had much practice because that robot seems to do it all. He was zhuzhing. He was zhuzhing. His own words. He said, I'm not cleaning, I'm zhuzhing.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's just a little bit of added insight into what makes each character special. They all have like their little isms, you know, what they do when they're stressed or what they do when they're happy or whatever. It's just an added little thing. And it's these kind of details that we love as fans to get to know the characters a little bit better. But what were you saying, Cirroc?
I was going to ask about other Star Treks and the people that are the psychological support. I think like Guinan was in Next Generation, right? Mm-hmm. Or was it Counselor Troy? It was both of them, right?
Yeah, Guinan was in a non-official capacity. She was more like her thing was she listens. So she was like the friend that you go to talk to. Counselor Troy was like the official ship's counselor.
And my question, I guess, is what do we usually see the mental state of those characters? Are they usually like solid bedrock people that are not too easily, or are they people that are emotionally sensitive and in some cases fragile?
I don't know if other than Counselor Troy and actually Guinan in the same series, we haven't really seen counselors. I know on DS9 they mentioned going to a counselor.
And Esri.
Esri.
Oh, Esri, yeah. But that doesn't happen until the last season. Voyager, they lament the fact that they don't have a counselor, and the Doctor sort of does try to take some of that on, as does Tuvok with like bulk and meditation and different tries. But it's never quite official, and often when the Doctor does it, it can go wrong. And it might even back up that like mental health and physical health, while related, are very different fields and approaches.
Yes.
And it's not the same training, and it's not the same skill sets and approaches and things. And I think it would be very hard unless, and there are other doctors on board, so I can see taking counseling lessons and going into that field, because you do still, a lot of counselors have to have a medical degree. So maybe we don't realize that he has more of a background and did get his medical degree, but also like, I don't know, minored in mental health or something. So maybe he has like a neurological background, but
that's a good point. I just feel like it's just a lot of work for one person to do. You can't be the chief medical officer and the counselor. I think it would be awesome if Dr. Pollard got a little love in that regard there. Right. But that would be really fun too. You look like you're going to say something, Homer.
I was just thinking how fun it would be for Jet Reno to be the counselor.
That would be kind of cool, though. I mean, she did counsel Stamets and Culber at one point.
Beautifully. Yeah.
And then the other thing, I think that we enjoy seeing the counselors that are screwed up in their personal life, or that don't have confidence, because you have a really confident, smooth counselor, say Troy, then it's not quite so interesting for us, because we know with Esri, she wasn't quite ready to do it, but she did it anyway. And Culber, I was thinking about Culber and why, and maybe it's just because nobody really gets hurt in Discovery, except for Oo had the scratch from her fight.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Culber doesn't have a lot to do, and so that, hey, why don't you be the counselor as well?
Well, Burnham got hurt when Book left.
She did. She really
feelings,
did.
Yes.
Yeah. And did she talk to Culber? I don't
Maybe.
think so. Not really. She should have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is kind of a big, all-encompassing job to, take care of people's health, both medically, physically, and emotionally.
Yeah.
And I think it might be new territory for Culber, so he is a little unsure of what he's doing, but he's feeling his way through it. So I get that. But
Zora would also be a good choice.
Yeah, kind of.
Oh no, in a way, but she's also the biggest wreck of them all too, though.
Yeah,
exactly.
A baby.
Like they go to see her, but she ends up crying and telling them why she's upset.
Or go watch some
and
movies.
Shuts down the shields. Shields offline.
But I don't understand why they wouldn't. I don't understand why they wouldn't just bring on a counselor to help the crew out, especially since they've all been through kind of a traumatic change from going from the past to the future. There's got to be counselors
totally
in the future too in Starfleet. So I don't know why they wouldn't bring on a new one.
Plus, we all know that the best counselor would be Linus.
Oh, that would be cool.
I wonder
for that.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder too, because I'm blanking on the name right now, but holograph counselor. I mean, he was sort of medical and mental as well. Wasn't
Rio?
Kovich?
Oh, the guy that got it.
Because he was counseling
Giorgio.
And he was counseling Giorgio, but he was also doing the physical scans, and he was the one that talked about, like, found the phase differential and temporal differential for Giorgio. So even he had sort of a gray line between medical and mental. Yeah. So maybe they are in the, far future doing more of a holistic take on medicine, where you do have to study both physical and mental and treat a person as a whole, because so many physical or mental things manifest physically or vice versa. Right. They are intricately tied. So maybe in the future they have a more treat the whole person, whether it's mental or physical, because it's all part of the same.
Hey, did you guys catch the boronite mention and what that implicates?
That is a Voyager deep cut to Omega Chronicles. It was mentioned twice, both of them in things getting destroyed. In one, space station was built partly with boronite, and then in the Omega Directive, it was boronite particles.
Mm-hmm. Does that mean that we are going to run into the Borg, the 800 years into the future Borg?
Oh, that would be interesting.
Are they the race or the group that is mining boronite to destroy everything?
No, it's species 10C.
Duh.
10C.
Weren't you listening?
But we don't know that that's what they're mining the borite for.
And the Federation hasn't had any interaction with 10C.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
So, no, the answer is no, I guess.
We'll see. We'll
Probably not in this context.
Well, at least Klingons were mentioned as well. Like, we're getting species reference, even if we're not getting species themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
we
the
heard
first
of Cardassian.
Yeah.
Apparently, Cardassians like cake.
And we had a mention of the Eisenberg.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Probably covered that earlier.
Yeah, that's the highlight of the year right there already. We started the episode with that. We basically spent 90% of the episode talking about that. We're like, okay, well, we got to get to the rest of this thing. And then we talked about poker for the rest of the time.
Oh, yeah.
Poker has a great tradition in Trek.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Did you guys have any favorite moments? Oh, go ahead, Cirroc.
Yeah, my favorite moment is when Aaron used to say, "What's up with the Aarons with 2 A's? They're Aaron."
Like Key and Peele, like that Key and Peele thing.
Yeah, like that Key and Peele thing.
You done messed up now, Aaron.
Aaron. And he would say, it's because Moses had a stutter, so people got it wrong. Aaron.
There it is.
Yeah.
I like that. I used to love those moments right there.
Yeah.
Because my dad's name is Aaron with 2 A's. So I told Aaron that we got the same name as my dad, except he's Aaron and you're Aaron. Aaron Aaron.
He's got 1 A. Your dad's got 2 A's. Rex has 4 A's. When you say Rex A Wood. No, but do you guys have any favorite parts of this episode? Anything that jumped out? Did you love that Has character?
Yeah. He was
Fun.
an interesting
Makeup was
character.
cool. Makeup was cool.
I don't know who the actor was.
Me neither.
I did like the part where Burnham let her guard down when she was playing poker. When she was like,
oh yeah,
sassy. I like that part. I like sassy Burnham.
Yeah. I was trying to
like
figure
that.
out what were the fake, like the signals to each other, and what were just them.
The tapping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the tapping.
Oh,
I
you're
think
talking
that the
about
hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stealing
thought when, like,
signs.
she had a hand
Yeah.
up, and then he put a hand up, and she put her hand down. I thought maybe that was one of them. That was fun. Like, that whole game was pretty fun.
Mhm.
But I think it's interesting how other alien races somehow adopt human objects, like chips.
Yeah.
Like chips and poker. I mean, I don't know.
If you were the props department, what would you use instead of chips? Jacks?
I don't know. Some kind of something different, like
Tic
I don't know.
Tacs?
Some kind of small, I don't know, kind of stone type thing. I don't know. That's colorful.
It doesn't even have
Like-
to be a physical object in this world or this time.
Well, that's true too. That's true too.
To be digital, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
It'd be digital. They could have all the sounds and everything, and it would keep track perfectly of the score, so you know exactly how much is in the pot.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
So it's more difficult to cheat too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought of the
That
same
way.
thing, Melissa. I was thinking, how many games have made it throughout the, like, how long will poker last? Will poker be around 500 years from now? We've seen chess has lasted through the ages, and it's
Mhm.
referenced in Star Trek. But like, darts, for example, in DS9, like how these games that we're used to seeing, racquetball, whatever, basketball, like, will they be around 500 years, 1,000 years from now? Or will
Right.
they be replaced by other
Right.
things?
Well, but they kind of make sense in the context of the original shows, because darts was a big thing in the UK for the human species. So I can see O'Brien introducing that as, something just like Sisko's introducing baseball. It's kind of American
Mhm.
heritage, and he's from, the US. I was just wondering how alien civilizations 1,000 years in the future are adopting things from human history
Mhm.
into their
Mhm.
day-to-day. I mean, I guess it's possible, but it just seems like chips, I don't know, would evolve a little bit.
Vegan chips.
Be more like Pringles.
It could be that what was it, Lagarin poker or something? Maybe it's a colony as opposed to a different species. So it's possible it's still like, and
Mhm.
it just occurred to me that it could just be like 5-card stud. It could just be a different version of poker that gets played on this one world, but it doesn't necessarily mean they weren't, of like a Federation colony.
It was the Leonian. It could also be
Leonian.
that. It could also be that just this thing evolved on its own planet, and when the Federation met this race and they saw them playing, they're like, "Oh, that's just like poker. It's like, we'll call it Leonian poker." It's like you see something that's similar to what you have, and we just kind of say, "Well, it's their version of it's like Leonian poker," something like that.
Well, I'll say that it didn't have the same structure as poker that we normally play, because there was only 2 cards in both
It was like blackjack.
It was more like blackjack.
But they had the cards in the middle, so it was like a version of poker where you play your 2 cards and it's
Oh,
like
I didn't see that.
5-card
I didn't
stud.
see that.
Yeah, they had the lineup in the center of the table, so everybody had their cards plus those.
Oh, so like a
I
no
thought it was
limit, no limit poker.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Texas Hold'em, I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
So my question
Kind
for
of.
everybody, here's my question for you guys. If you're a changeling, and you're
I know
backed into a corner. What are you changing into? And don't say Tribble because that answer's been used already.
I say that was the fastest moving Tribble ever.
Yeah.
Oh my!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Backed into a corner.
Yeah. Melissa? What are you changing into? Something different, right?
Something that flies.
An Albanian condor.
Yeah, exactly.
Something that flies really, really fast. That I could probably even fly into like a little tiny rocket ship or something. But I don't know. Yeah.
Well, if I'm backed into a corner and I need to get out of that corner, and the best answer that Zippy Tribble is off, then I would do like I don't know what my planet is, but a Stegosaurus or a rhinoceros and just through there.
All right.
Out of the way. And then I could change into something else that was fast. Maybe with a prehensile tail.
Or maybe like some kind of liquid that because you can't catch just
just like become a part of the wall in the corner and then just like slide on the wall, get out.
Yeah.
I could just ooze through
seep,
seep
into the cracks and just pop out the other side.
Smoke.
Mm-hmm. Smoke goes out the window. That people will definitely. Well, we got to run, everybody. That was a fun one. I didn't come up with an answer. What's your answer, Cirroc?
I'm gonna have to go with Melissa. I'd probably go with the liquid and find a way to just like pour myself into the next room.
Or you could just like turn in
sponge.
You could turn into the people that are trying to catch you. So they're like, "You arrest that man." No, I'm the real. And then it turns into a buddy cop show. All right, well, let's move it along, everybody. Thank you very much, Homer, Anna, and Melissa, for joining in. Everybody at home, thank you for playing along with us. Cirroc, myself, and the guy that got ships named after him, Mr. Aron Eisenberg. Thank you, and we can't wait to see you next time. Until then, always remember the 7th rule.